For those of you who don't know me, I'm very famous. I'm just kidding. I'm a photographer by trade, and I just wanted to weigh in on where I think these AI change the creative field. Apple hosted their annual WWDC, which a lot of us forget is first and foremost for developers. This is where Apple has a 5-day conference and they show these developers the new technologies, APIs, and plugins for their current and in-development apps. And Day one does double as a publicity event for YouTubers like me to nerd out about, so let's get into it. This year received a ton of hype, and that's why I find it so surprising that I kind of walked away underwhelmed. This event could pretty much be summarized as Apple did AI plus a few quality of life improvements, and look, I like them. Thank you for finally trusting me to put my apps in a non-linear fashion. And look, there wasn't nothing. There actually was a few things that piqued my interest, and one of those was actually the new map features, where they're adding hiking trails to all the national parks, as well as this ability to create your own maps. And I find this interesting because I am a huge map nerd. I love Onyx, and I love iOverlander, and All Trails is alright. Typography is really important for going to these back areas, as well as these user-submitted trails. So it gives you the ability to essentially go into the wilderness and go on an adventure while also not being unprepared. Hey, here's the local weather, it's going to rain. And then I know that when it rains, there's this one spot that gets really muddy and I can prepare for that. Apple having the ability to build your own maps and your own trails, am I going to be able to share those with other people? Am I going to be able to review them? I'm curious to see what Apple does with this and if there's going to be more infrastructure fleshed out in the next couple years. And part of me is scared for these smaller apps. I'd hate to see them get crushed under the boot that is Apple. But I also would like to optimistically hope that some good competition will drive these apps to be the best they possibly can be. And furthermore, this is not a feature I'm going to have access to because I have an iPhone 12 still. But the satellite feature, they're actually expanding that so it can use iMessage and SMS. For those of you who are not familiar with this, originally in the original conception, you were not able to text your mom goodnight. It was essentially a series of linear questions that were sent to first responders in the event that you were lost in the mountains. And so having the ability to text my mom I made it to my campsite, that's enough peace of mind for me to consider upgrading this fall alone. And aside from that, what else is there? Just some small stuff, some quality of life, like I said. There is the ability to change your apps to be a monochrome color, which is great, I guess. And we get a Windows 7 feature where we can put our windows on the macOS desktop into these pre-fitted sizes to optimize your usage with multiple apps. Great. But the big elephant in the room, and no one should have been surprised, it's that Apple finally did AI. And I find this one hilarious because Apple is the most secretive company in the whole world, and even they couldn't help but show their hand. They were so excited to launch this. But the truth is, it looks really cool in the iteration that they showed. But I'm going to hold my breath because the truth is we're going to see how it works on real devices where people have their desktops that are messy and their messages don't have all the contact cards perfectly filled out. How is it going to work? And intent with AI is really hard. So if they do it, it's great, but I'm going to hold my breath. And if you're a nerd like me, you would know that after Apple does these events, on their website, they break down all the updates into the sections like iPadOS, macOS, iOS, etc. But they did do that this year, but they actually separated 90% of what they announced into its own tab, Apple Intelligence. Good on them for taking over AI with their own acronym. But I think the biggest reason they did that is, even though this is coming this fall, I think a lot of us actually will not get to experience this for many years. And the biggest reason is that the compatible device list is actually pretty small. And the biggest reason I think that happened is, and a lot of people will cry, Apple wants you to buy new devices, which I do believe is always a factor, 100%. Hardware isn't pushing sales like it used to. But I think Apple made such a bad first impression with Siri, 10, 15 years ago. They couldn't do that again. I think they wanted a lot of the computing to be done on device, and that just put the computing power at a threshold that didn't cover a lot of devices. I think it was Apple's insistence on a level of quality that's probably higher than what most people would need to tolerate, but they went forward with that, and it is what it is. Most people are going to get to experience these new AI features on their Mac and iPad, and that's because that's the lion's share of the compatibility list. And that's not a bad thing per se, because it's supposed to help with productivity, and this is where most creatives get their work done, is on their Mac and on their iPad. So I think we'll be the first to benefit. First and foremost, it wouldn't be an Apple event if this wasn't true. Everything they announced, you can already do in a very segmented fashion. What Apple provides is all these various experiences in one package. Apple provides a level of polish as well as benefits for people deeply entrenched in their ecosystem. And often what that means is that there is no direct comparison for an Apple product per se, but you can do everything that's been announced. If you're not an Apple user or have no plans to upgrade in the near future, fret not, because these are all tools that you already have access to. You can use ChatGPT to clean up your writing style. You can make Midjourney make an ugly soulless image for you. Or you can have a poem made to invite your friend to the barbecue, because that's what people do, I guess. Like, all these tools are already at your disposal. Nothing in the art or creative world is going to change today or even tomorrow due to the update that Apple just announced, but it will impact the future, and that is because we are starting to see how AI integrates into our culture as a whole. I mean, your grandma is going to have access to AI for the first time. She's going to be generating images, and she can't even tell what's AI on Facebook right now. And look, it might sound like I'm hating. I'm not. I'm actually very excited for when I have access to this stuff. They've set a lot of groundwork for a lot of impressive technology that they can expand on for years to come. And there is some really cool stuff that's going to cut down on the tedium, like digging out a file a client sent me on an email list that's 84 deep. Perfect. Incredible. A voice memo I have that it's going to summarize it into bullet points for me. Almost magical. There's no part of computing that needs to be tedious, and it shouldn't be tedious. This is going to save us a lot of time. And then we have the slippery slope that is content creation. And look, friends sending each other AI-generated images, harmless, maybe even good for a laugh. You making your work email sound friendly and happy when you actually cannot stand to be there, that's pretty nice. Changing your hand-drawn note picture of this building to this abomination? Questionable. Look, I am biased as a visual artist, but I don't think this is what's going to launch us into the future. My biggest worry, my biggest fear is that we're going to make a world where people who are lazy can get further than those who are genuinely grinding in more traditional methods. And maybe that's unfounded, or maybe that's legit. I don't know. But what I do know is that who am I to decide? Because I see these implementations. I see Siri able to organize my files, and now I can be lazy about my file organization, and I jump for joy. But another person might have a passion for this jean company, and now they're like, I can actually make a Instagram post to promote my jeans every day, and that's a tedium that they see going away. Who am I to decide what tedium is legit and which is an infringement on the culture as a whole? I'll be the first to tell you, I'm a little biased when it comes to AI. Not automatically, but I get a little defensive about it finding its way into the commercial space, and I tend to look down on art that I know used AI in some capacity. But just because someone has a passion for business and art is a tedium that they can now get around, I don't think that inherently makes them evil. I haven't completely worked my brain through the whole AI in the world thing yet. It's very complicated. I don't have the answers. I'm not hiding them from you. And the place I'm actually the most conflicted is I have a huge love for history YouTube. Real life lore is incredible. And there are some accounts that make incredible history videos, but they use Midjourney to do their images. And it's kind of a slippery slope because, again, would it be better if they hired a real artist, they commissioned them to draw the frames and animate it? Yes. But I also know that these people with this passion for history don't necessarily have a passion for making art. And they're not making these videos from their 30-foot yachts. They're probably from more humble backgrounds like college dorm rooms, and hiring an artist isn't even feasible. Is the good that comes from these history videos worth the bad, the artists that never got to make the work? If I really rack my brain, I want to say yes, because, hundreds of thousands of people watch some of these videos, sometimes millions in these instances. And that's a lot of people who are, inspired to learn enriching things about our history. And I think that's good. But I can also look at the other side of the coin. There's, the scumbag guy on Temu who is using AI to generate a race to the bottom stickers and posters that just drive genuine artists out of business. And that's everything. You have to take the good with the bad. And I think time will only tell if AI is going to empower more good or more bad. And this is the really hard thing. As AI becomes more prominent, I actually think it's going to fall on everyday people to be more competent and more aware of what they're looking at. And first, on the consumption side, you have to really analytically more than ever look at stuff and say, is this real? Is this legit? I think it'll get really difficult to tell. And on the purchasing side, that side of consumption, it's your money. Do whatever you want with it. But if you do care about supporting artists, I think it is worth checking to verify that the vendor you're buying from is a legit artist. And then on the creation side of things, look, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I would hope that all humans would make every action from a place of love of the world in their heart, but it's up to you to decide where the edge is. And I think the best question to ask yourself is, are you the one talking or not? Are you using this to empower your vision, or is this just a means to an end to pump content onto Instagram? I think every single artist is trying to figure out where AI is going to fit into their creative workflow, and everything in life is a balancing act. Using AI is no different. It is one of those things where you shouldn't use it as a tool to cheat or short your fellow man. And you also shouldn't unnecessarily hold yourself back. It's a tool on your tool belt. It's at your disposal. It's going to take time for everyone to figure out where this fits in their creative life. I am by no means the first person to say this, but AI is going to start replacing things. And we do have a decision in that fact. And AI should not replace our culture. It should be humans who make our art and our music and our written literature. AI should be replacing tedious and dangerous tasks that gives us more time to do things that make us unique and make us individuals and further culture. I know I got us pretty off topic. To circle around to the actual WWDC, I thought it was pretty good. There was a few things I was disappointed about, and the biggest one is that aside from the AI stuff, there really wasn't a whole lot. And I really thought this would be the year that iPadOS might get a huge overhaul. It got a cool calculator app. That only took 15 years. It looks really cool. It actually does look really cool. If you're in school, actually take a look at that. And the Macs can now mirror your phone like over Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. The only place that I can really see this being useful for creatives is the fact that Meta, Instagram, they refuse to make their desktop application all that good. So, instead of having to go on your phone, like I don't like to go on my phone when I'm trying to be productive. It really helps me to put it away from me. So maybe if I want to make a post, I can just do this through my Mac and that'll keep me locked in. I don't know. I think this was Apple just trying to say screw you to all the apps that wouldn't play nice with their Mac OS, where they're trying to emulate all the phone apps to begin with. But this is the thing. They didn't mess anything up. I'm not going to be unable to do things on my Mac that I was before. And the truth is you can always just not update. But here's to next year being the year that iPads get a huge overhaul. Life is not going to change overnight. It's going to be very slow, and then you're going to look and it's all so sudden. Apple did not jump us into the future like they would like us to believe. They took things that have existed and they have polished it in a way that's never been polished before, and they're bringing it to the masses. AI is going to be accessible to more people than it's ever been. And how people are going to use that isn't really in your control. Only you're in your control. And just make cool art. Tell me what you make. Or tell me how you think AI is going to destroy us all or empower us all. I don't know. Leave in the comments. If you watched this far, I really appreciate you. I love talking about tech. I love talking about art. If you want to hear more about those things, subscribe. Check out my other videos. It means a lot. And go to my website if you want to either join my newsletter. I send monthly updates on just photography, video, and other creative things I'm working on. And I got my whole portfolio there if you want to see the hundreds and hundreds of photos I've made. Thanks. Have a good one.